I always believed my family was unbreakable. We weren't perfect, but we were whole, tied together by love, laughter, and Sunday dinners that felt like they could last forever. My father, Thomas, was the kind of man who filled every room with certainty. My mother, Sarah, was the quiet rhythm of our home, her presence the glue that held us together. And me, I was simply proud to belong to them. I never imagined that one decision, one unthinkable demand from my father, would destroy everything we had built. But sometimes betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you trust the most. It began on a night that looked just like any other. The air outside was soft with rain, the smell of Sarah's stew drifted through the house, and Mia was humming quietly in her room. Nothing about that evening warned me that my life was about to split in two. I still remember the way Thomas's voice trembled when he called my name. "Emily," he said, "come here for a moment." His tone wasn't sharp, but it wasn't normal either. When I stepped into the living room, Sarah was already seated on the sofa, her hands clenched tightly together, as if holding on to something she couldn't let go of. The silence felt heavier than any sound. Thomas looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize, cold, distant, almost pleading. "I need you to do something for me," he said slowly. "Something your mother can't." My heart stilled. His words didn't sound like a request. They sounded like a sentence. Sarah turned away, tears forming quietly in her eyes, and I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't simple. He spoke again, but I barely heard him over the sound of my own heartbeat. Every word that followed cut deeper than the last. It wasn't a favor. It was a demand that asked me to choose between the man I called my father and the truth I'd always believed in. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every word he'd said. The man who once tucked me in at night now felt like a stranger. His love had always been strong, but it came wrapped in control. Control over our choices, our silence, even our emotions. I realized then that love with conditions isn't really love at all. The next morning, the house felt colder. Thomas moved through the rooms like a shadow. Sarah avoided his eyes. And Mia, too young to understand, asked if everything was okay. I told her yes, even though every part of me was breaking. Days passed, and small things began to shift. Thomas started coming home late, the scent of a woman's perfume lingering faintly on his clothes, a scent that wasn't Sarah's. He took phone calls behind closed doors, whispering, his tone clipped and urgent. I tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself I was imagining things, but truth has a way of clawing its way out of silence. One night, as I passed by his study, I heard him say softly, "She can't know about this." My heart sank. Who was she? My mother? Or someone else entirely? Then came the night when Sarah's quiet grief broke through her calm. I heard her whisper to him, "I can't live with this secret anymore." His reply was low, almost pleading, "If you tell them, you'll destroy us." Those words froze me where I stood. Destroy us? What secret could hold such power? From that moment on, every glance, every silence in our home felt heavier. It wasn't just about mistrust, it was about fear. The fear of what truth could do once spoken aloud. I started noticing even more. The way Sarah's eyes followed Thomas when he walked out the door. The way she'd sit by the window, waiting long after his car had disappeared into the night. The way she'd flinch when the phone rang. It was like watching a beautiful painting crack slowly from the inside. And I, helpless, stood in the middle of it all, torn between love for my father and loyalty to the woman who had always protected us. One evening, when the tension became unbearable, I followed him. He said he had a business meeting, but something inside me knew that wasn't true. I kept a safe distance as he parked outside a quiet restaurant on the far side of town. A woman stood waiting by the entrance. She smiled when she saw him, that kind of smile that comes only from familiarity. My breath caught. I didn't recognize her, but the way he looked at her told me everything I needed to know. My heart felt like it had cracked open. I stood there frozen as the man I'd admired my whole life walked into that restaurant and left a piece of my world behind. When I returned home, the house was silent. Sarah was asleep on the couch, her face pale from exhaustion. I sat beside her and whispered the question I couldn't say aloud. Why, Dad? Why would you risk everything for someone else? Why would you lie to the people who would have forgiven anything if only you'd told the truth? The silence didn't answer me, but deep down I knew. This was just the beginning. The secret he carried was far greater than infidelity. It was something darker, something that could tear us apart completely. And as I stared at the ceiling that night, listening to the quiet hum of the world outside, one thought refused to leave my mind. If love can destroy, what hope does forgiveness have to rebuild?